Okay, awesome. Good morning, ladies. We are chatting sales today, which is huge, especially because last week I always love being on the other side of a sales call. So whenever people launch things, like I like being sold to. So I really would encourage you ladies, if you don't feel comfortable with sales and or you just want to get better, put yourself in situations where you are being sold to. Then you can start to ask questions to yourself. And it's like, how did I feel in that? Did I really like it? Did I like them? What did they do? What questions did they ask me? Like, take notes as the one being sold to, especially if it's on the phone, it's super easy. So just paying attention, especially to how you're feeling and how you want others to feel in sales situations with you. So I was on a bunch of sales calls as the Sally, whatever you want to call it. And so many of them were really bad. The other thing that I noticed were the men were a lot better than the women. Like the female sales skills were so brutal. Like it was embarrassing. I almost wanted to turn around and be like, I think I need to help you, because that was the worst call I've ever been on in my life. Yeah. So I just want to make sure you guys, we're all learning and growing and talking about it so that we don't make the same mistakes. So what I'm going to do is we'll just go around the circle. I'll call you out based on how you show up on my screen. Just say your name, what you do, and let me think. And I want you to share like a challenge that you're working on right now. It doesn't have to be sales related, but in sharing our challenges, maybe people will also be able to help one another within the community, and then we can talk more about sales. So Kaylee, we'll start with you.
Hey, I am a life and confidence coach, and my struggle right now, I have several, but I feel like my main one is probably getting more one-to-one clients.
Cool, thank you. Okay, Nicole.
There's two Nicoles.
A brown hair Nicole comes up first.
So I work for a startup that focuses on chronic disease prevention. I'm not an entrepreneur, but I want to become one. So I would say my challenge right now is figuring out what I want to offer.
Cool. Thank you, Nicole. Okay, other Nicole.
Okay. Hi, I'm a health coach. I think my challenge right now too is actually figuring out what I want to offer, because health is such a broad area, and I'm so interested in all these different things, like helping women create healthy habits, nutrition, exercise, and specializing in the menstrual cycle. So I really need to figure out my niche market so I can actually get a client.
Cool, thank you. Okay, Denise.
So I'm Denise. I'm an intuitive life coach. Right now, it's like converting, I don't want to say clients, but like converting calls to clients.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like, and bringing in the money.
Yeah. Cool. It's important. Yeah. If
Yeah.
you don't bring in money, then you can't be doing what you want to be doing. So
Exactly.
you have to. Yeah, cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Jade, go ahead.
Hi, I am just starting a business. So I'm trying to figure out like what's all the services that I want to do, and a lot of the like legal stuff and setting up all of that is the one thing that's the bigger thing that's holding back, and procrastination, time management. So
Yeah. Tell me more about the bigger things. What are these bigger things that you're focusing on right now?
for me, it's trying to get all the like stuff set up in my business to have like client onboarding set up properly so that everything is like smooth and funnels so that like I don't have to do like all the work, and it's those steps are set up. So that's one of the bigger things at the moment. And trying to like do all the legal stuff and make sure that I'm protected when I do like launch my business.
So you haven't launched yet?
No.
Okay. I'm going to give you an asterisk and we can talk later. So many people focus on all that stuff before they've launched, and really it's not even that important. You like don't even need a website to launch. start making money, and then you can use that as you go along. Like, nobody cares about the onboard process. Half of my clients, when they started, I don't even use a contract with my clients. Like, you literally can set up so many things that we think that it is a lot more important than it is. Just get started. Like, imperfect action is going to be your best friend. You're going to screw up, and you just figure it out as you go along. What I see is so many people that spend time on all of those big things before they start. They never use half of them, and then they end up having to change them anyways once they've started, because they're like, oh, I don't like it. So just build as you go. But money will be your most important thing. You can start tomorrow. I promise you. It ends up becoming like a little bit of a procrastination thing, where so many people, like so many of my clients, they'll be spending 9 to 5 in Starbucks and actually doing nothing and making no money. And you can get really caught up in working on things that aren't bringing you money. And that's why I love sales, because overarching principle is 80% of your time is on sales. So you can still be doing these other things, but 80% of your time should still be on sales, especially when money is important, which it always is. Does that make sense? And then even knowing what your sales activities are, which we'll talk about as well. Cool. Thanks, Jade. Okay, Chantal.
So there's a few things here that I am working on, and my goal by the end of this week is to hire or outsource. I wanted to be an executive assistant, but maybe it's too much. But I wanted to outsource someone that could help with creating decks and putting presentations together. I've come to accept, and I have to roll with the punches, that my kids are not going back to school, and there is no camp. So I have to be the nanny, and I actually need someone now to do the work that I can't get around to doing enough of. So it comes down to delegation, and so I'm ready to pay for it, but I need to find out the right fit for me. So, and there's a few projects that are going on. One's a passion project that has to get going now. One's a project that's been sitting on the wayside that needs to pick up speed on, and the other one is events. And so now that my industry is obviously a little bit on hold here, I have to pivot and get nimble and change things. So I got to keep my eye on what's going on with the stages of bringing back. So this summer I wanted to try and have things set to go so that when it comes time, I'm ready to launch it. So I want someone to help me just create like the creative and have it set to go, so that when the time comes that you can have more than 5 people at a gathering, boom, there goes my invite. Here we go. This is what we're doing. This is the date. This is the time. Do you want to come? And so I have to get all those things lined up to execute when the time comes right. And so the first one that I kind of don't have an idea for yet and wanted to work on is the ones for the kids. So the kids are all starving to see their friends. So I wanted to create an event going to the kids' 5 best friends who they want to be. And so whether it be like a Roblox themed event, because that's what they're all playing. And that's the one thing that's keeping them together during this lockdown is Roblox. And so I got to think of an event that, obviously I could do a pool party. That's easy peasy. But at the same time, if that's what it comes down to, just doing a pool party, then we'll do a pool party. But you wanted to just have it executed to go. And you want to find the right wording, right? So my son and I had a conversation about it. And I'm like, do you want to do an event this summer with your friends? And he's like, well, Mom, I don't want you putting yourself out there if we're not allowed to do it. So even my 10-year-old son is really cautious about I don't want you to be the first one, Mom, to get rejected. So just, he's like, let someone else go first. And I loved him for that. But at the same time, no, that's what I have to embrace going forward, doing a business where I have to be able to okay, I might get rejected here, but don't take it personally. And just keep persevering.
I think your son actually was onto something too, because sometimes what I see, and I don't know what your situation is, it depends what you want your cash flow to look like. But a lot of people in events, the mistake that I'm seeing them make right now is planning for something that we don't know. and
Right.
they're putting all their time into an event that may not pan out for a year. So if you're looking for money and you're looking to convert that faster, we still need to adapt. Like the events industry is changing whether we like it or not. So I think, and again, this can be a continued conversation. I just am trying to give notes for everybody else on the call as well.
Right.
That see how you can adapt now in addition to having some thoughts in the future. Like we have had some people that we were planning large events with, and they're like, oh, let's keep planning. I'm not even wasting any of my time on that right now until we have the green light, because we have to select as entrepreneurs where you spend your time. And if it can't convert into a sale right now, especially, and again, this may not apply for Chantel, but looking at, okay, what can I do now? And so that we can adapt moving forward and really continue to focus on what's important and continue to adapt your business strategy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Thanks, Chantel. Yeah. I mean, it's tough. You're definitely in an industry that was hit super hard. And
Yeah.
with, but even within live events, obviously all of our live events have been postponed as well. And we just have to roll with the punches. So there you go. Okay. And I can't see your name. Who just turned their video on? What was your name?
Osaze.
Oh, there. Okay, perfect. It was where the mute was, so I couldn't see your name. I would have asked you probably to pronounce it anyway. So thank you, Osaze.
No worry. Osaze.
Osaze. Okay, awesome. Thank you for correcting me.
You're welcome. So I own and run an interior decorating business. And what I'm really dealing with right now is developing clear marketing and sales processes so that I have consistent business all year round.
Yeah, cool. Awesome. Thank you. We'll talk about that as well. And Nadia. Oh, Nadia, you're muted. Let me unmute you. Okay, Nadia.
Hi, sorry, I just joined. What was the question?
The question is, just quickly introduce yourself and let us know what you do and a challenge that you currently are having.
What I do is I have a online store where I'm selling office furniture, and right now my challenge is sales. I want to learn more about sales.
And how do you mostly do your sales right now? Because I can tell based on most of the other industries, they're one-on-one. Furniture might be a little bit different. How are you making your sales?
I do Google and Facebook ads, and sometimes I have to, people call in, and when items are out of stock. Right now there are a lot of items out of stock because of, I guess, China, and so a lot of manufacturers aren't getting the equipment that they need. So I'm trying to steer them to other products to not lose that customer.
Right. Okay. So
and I've never had any like official sales training before.
Okay. We will be talking a lot about one-on-one sales today. However, within automation, you can set up a lot of automation even within your system too. So collecting email addresses, ads, and then automation when they purchase something, and then when they abandon cart, if you have like an abandoned cart sequence.
Okay.
Yeah. So remind me to ask me about that if I forget to get there. Okay, Nadia?
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, what, ladies, and you guys can just talk at random, what would you say are your biggest challenges about sales? Are your conversions, your confidence, you don't know what to say? Like, where are you struggling the most in sales?
I can go.
Yeah, go for it, Kaylee.
I feel like a lot of the people that I have gotten on a sales call so far are the people that just kind of stumble upon engaging with me, and then I happen to get them on a call, but they're not as, say, like knowledgeable about the work that I do necessarily. I don't know if that's the best way to describe it. So I find that like when I'm asking them my sales calls, I'm just comparing it to like when, because I've been on a lot of sales calls when I'm the person being sold to, and it's just when you haven't thought, especially with a life coach and like what me and Denise do, or what me like Nicole does as well, like if the person hasn't thought about the work yet, it's trickier for them to answer the questions with more thought because they haven't maybe thought about it before. So I find that that's a little trickier, because then it's harder for me to respond and do my kind of like progression with my sales call if they haven't, if they're not as aware of their own struggles, or they haven't thought about things as much. I don't know if that makes sense.
It does, but I haven't seen that trend. So then my questions are, how are they getting on the sales call?
Mm-hmm.
And making sure, and I know Kaylee has one, but just making sure that you have an application form when people are talking to you. So making sure that they've thoroughly you've asked the questions you need them to ask in the way that you need them to be thinking, and then making sure that you're very clear on how they get onto the sales call. So we'll dive a little bit more into that. Anybody else having challenges with sales and conversions? Because I'm going to go into a specific script that we can use on calls, and then some additional tips when using like Instagram, email, and building out your offer as well. Any other comments on sales? No? Okay, cool. Okay, let's just go into, I'm going to do Instagram first because it's super easy, and then we can move into our we can move into some of the other like one-on-one call methods. So Instagram is all about consistency. You have to sell on your stories as much as you are your feed. And this goes actually to everyone. So even Nadia, doesn't matter what you're selling, you have to be consistent. This will also help to get people to know you more. So even what Kaylee was saying with her challenge. So, and it's always about providing value. So I've mentioned this format before. I even mentioned it on the last group call. When you're doing your stories, you want to cover 4 topics. The first is always, this is what I'm going to tell you, like the title of an email. The second is, this is why it's important to you. And people miss this step. Let me explain what that means. That means saying, let's say Denise is talking, right? Like that's me saying, I know you're sitting at home so confused of your next step. I know that you're crying yourself to sleep, worrying about clarity and your next decision. You want them to say in that second step, yes, that is me. Denise is talking to me. Then in your third step, you want to give them the value and you want to give them the tip. And then the fourth step is always their call to action. Now what? You want to make the call to action as simple as possible. So I'm going to give you a few examples. You might invite them to a webinar. You might invite them to a free one-on-one call, and or you tell them the exact word to DM you. Hey, DM me dream if you want to chat more. Especially if your community isn't used to engaging with you, you're going to need to be very simple and specific with the call to action. If you just say, hey, message me if you want to chat, it's the barrier to entry is really high. They're like, what the hell do I say? Like Nicole just told me to message her. I want to chat, but I have no idea. But if Nicole said like, DM me food if you want to get your food in order, Denise doesn't have to think. She just messages Nicole and just says food. So just think about, am I lowering the barrier to entry? Am I being very specific? Being specific and to the point is going to be your entire sales strategy. Okay, so that's your Instagram stories. Your Instagram feed is the same. You have your heading, your point, why it's important to them, so that they're reading and they're like, yep, she's talking to me, and you give them a call to action. You have to continuously do this cycle. Same with emails. Everything is a call to action, which people miss. And the why it's important to them, the pain point. So this goes back to the conversations that we even had last week on making sure you understand people's pain points and what they're actually going through. This will help you to be more specific. And I also want you ladies, a couple of you had said you're trying to figure out your area and your niche. Give yourself permission for trial and error. You know, when you start, you might just be a life coach, but once you start training and working, you know, Kaylee might realize, man, I really love talking about chakras, and then becomes a chakra coach, right? Like, you have to start somewhere to realize, okay, where can I pare down my information and start really getting specific on my messaging, right? And my brand. Okay, so that's Instagram. Any question about Instagram? If we also want to look at your, what's it called? Your little like bio at the top on Instagram, it also needs to be specific. Make sure you're mentioning a pain point, and make sure you're telling them what results you're going to get them within that bio. Your link needs to also be, so this is a common mistake that I see, and a couple ladies actually asked me this question last week. Should I just put my calendar link in my bio for them to book a one-on-one with me or like a meeting? And my answer is always no. You do not want your calendar to be accessible by just like every Tom, Dick, and Harry. So make sure you have an onboarding process. This will be a little nod out to Jade, but it's super simple. All you need for your onboarding process is an application form. They apply for a one-on-one call with you. They apply for whatever it is that you're selling so you can get them on a call. That application form will usually have, you know, very simple questions. What's your name, email, what are you looking for? What breakthrough are you hoping to have? Why do you want to hire me? And the really important question at the end, you got to start talking about money early, ladies. So the last question is always, do you have money to invest in blah, blah, blah? And then you have a multiple choice. Yes, I'm ready to invest. Yes, I'll find the money. And no, I do not have the money to invest. The more comfortable we can get starting, we can get started to actually talk about money. It'll prepare you better for the sales call, and it's not something we should be ashamed of. The women on the sales calls, and I'm going to keep nodding back to my sales calls that I was on this week. Once they started talking about money, they were so awkward. Most of them didn't even want to get me on the phone. They were just like, oh, I'll send it to you over email. But the men were like right on the phone. Like, yep, it's going to be this. How does that sound to you? Right? So you'll notice when I go through the actual sales process, like, we got to get better about talking about money with each other. Like, even that's why I wanted to start having these calls. Like, we have to start talking about business. We have to start talking about making money and not be ashamed of it like it's something super bad. Men talk about it all the time, and investing and all that sort of stuff, right? And these are just times as we grow, right? And that's totally cool too. So money. All of those 4 points are the same as with an email and everything. A quick nod, because I always mention this, if you haven't started building your email list, you have to start capturing emails, whether it be through a freebie, ads, something. Same goes for Nadia. When you're selling a product, if you're capturing emails, you're better able to sell them ads, because you can, tag them when they're going to your site. You can send them follow-ups, and it just makes it a lot easier. So throughout the sales process, I love how Jade is thinking about, okay, what do I want my customer journey to be like? And that's what we actually talked about on last week's training, because you can see, okay, where are they coming from? Where am I getting them on a one-on-one call? Your one-on-one call is still going to be, especially when you're looking for sales, you want them all on one-on-one calls. And then you can go from there, right? Then what happens after the one-on-one call, and so on and so forth. So let me go into the script. Do you ladies have any questions before we go into the specific script? Okay, so a couple notes before we go into the script. Try to get people on the phone as quickly as possible. You want to be as specific as possible. You do not want to talk a lot. And I know we're trading now. I feel like I'm talking, but on a sales call, I do not talk. You got to listen and just realize it's about them. Too often, so what I noticed on the sales calls, big red flags for me, were a lot of the women were just like, oh, let's chat. They tried to lower the, they tried to make it casual, but then didn't even have like a goal. I literally had to ask them, like, why are we on this call? Like, what are you wanting to tell me? Like, there was no clarity because they were just wanted to be like, hey, let's get on a call and I'm going to give you information and hopefully you like me. Like, not good. You want it to still be specific and guide the person through the call so they know what to expect. Does that make sense? If the person has to ask you, like, what are you talking about? Not good. So we'll be very specific in how we set up the call. Okay. And for you to have a specific point, like you could also tell that on the call, they were scared to make an offer. So they kept it general. And I literally had to ask them, like, what is your offer? Like, what are you doing? And they're like, oh, we just want to give value. I was like, no, like it was just bad. Okay. So let's go. So you're getting on a call. So first you are doing all these things. You have to, it's all about numbers. We have to just funnel as many people into these one-on-one calls as possible. In the beginning, you're going to be uncomfortable and that's okay. So just the more, the better. Okay. So when you get on the call, first, you want to make a connection of some sort. You really want to build that human vibe. Pretend you're talking to your best friend. I don't care what you talk about. Just make it normal. And I'm going to say normal in quotation. It's like normal is, normal, but I'm going to laugh and just say like, be normal. Talk to your friends. It's not a sales call. Just be normal on this call. Okay. So I'll give you an example. I was actually on a sales call selling someone last week. And I heard a kid in the background and I was like, oh, great. This is my in. And I was like, oh, how many kids do you have? I hear a kid. And he was like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like, just ignore them. I'm like, no, I mean, how are you doing in quarantine with children like that? I feel like that would be a nightmare. And he just laughed and he was like, it is. Thank you for acknowledging me, right? Like you can talk about anything. It doesn't matter. Just talk like you're talking to their friend. So the first step, build some sort of rapport. The second thing is give them a quick agenda. Okay, like let's get into it. And I always say like these calls are super casual. I just want to get to know you. You can tell me a little bit more about what you do and what you're looking for. And then I'll tell you a little bit about me and how I help people. And then you can let me know if that's a fit for you. If not, totally cool. I'm all good. How does that sound to you? So you're prepping them and you're asking them questions. You always want to circle back. You talk for a short period of time and then always say, does that make sense? How does that sound? So that you get that response and feedback from them. And then they're usually like, yep, that sounds good. What you've done in that intro is guide them. You told them how the call was going to go. You also told them, hey, I'm making an offer at the end of this call. Then it's not a surprise. And then you don't feel awkward being like, okay, can I tell you about what I do? You've already told them in the beginning of the call, I'm going to find out about you. Then I'm going to tell you about what I do. How does that sound? And they're always like, yep, totally cool. Okay, so then we go into the conversation. I'm going to give you the big picture, and then I'm going to give you some smaller questions in those buckets. The big picture, you want to know, where are they at right now? Where do they want to go? And why haven't they gotten there yet? That's basically it. And then I'm going to give you some specific questions to ask to get that out of them. And when I say that, I want you to get real deep. And I'll give you some examples, because if you ask them, I'll give you some examples when I tell you the specific questions, but I find that a lot of people don't get deep enough. and they just accept like a very generic answer. But think about bonding, okay? The better you can get at asking questions, the deeper your connection will be with that person, and the more you'll understand them. The more you get on calls, you'll also start to see if they have an idea of what they're talking about or not. So last week I had a sales call where I was selling them. And when I was asking the questions, like, she just wasn't really giving me much. And I flat out said to her, okay, I'm just going to pause for a second because I want to make sure that I'm a fit for you. And I want to just really understand, what are you really looking for? Like, you got to get there. And you have to hear it in their voice. Don't be afraid to challenge them, because at the end of the day, they will respect you more for it, because they want to know that you have their best interest. And it's okay for you not to be a fit. So just like completely let go of all of the attachment and expectations that they have to do anything with you. This is just a call. Okay, so the first question is a simple, like, where are you at? Tell me where you're at right now, and see where they go. You might have to dive a little bit deeper and be like, but I'm gonna give you some questions to get there. So where are you at? What are you dealing with right now? Tell me where you're at right now. The second question is, what is your vision? Paint it big. Like, you want to know, you want them to paint such a big picture of, like, tell me where you want to be. What does this look like for you? Tell me who you want to be working with, how much money you want to be making, right? Like, we're talking ideal. You have to get them into their dream to know and to realize the gap, right? So you're trying to fill in that gap. Right now, there's a gap between where they are and where they want to go. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. You can be selling furniture, you can be selling life coaching and confidence, or business coaching, or whatever, right? Or design. They're here and they want to get here in some capacity, and your product and service is helping them get there. So you have to allow them to see that gap. If you just ask them, like, where are you, blah, 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 do you see that you haven't painted that gap? So there's no sense of urgency to get them to work with you or to even realize that they need a change. Is this making sense? Okay, so what's their dream? The third question, here's where we start to get deeper. Okay, so what are your current challenges and struggles? And sometimes I find the third question will morph into the first question. That's okay. It doesn't need to go in a specific order. Remember, that's why I started with the bigger picture of, you just need to get to, where are they now, where do they want to go, and why haven't they gotten there yet? Then we need to get even deeper. Now we start getting more emotional. Okay, what is actually getting in your way? Why haven't you gotten here yet? Because if you're telling me that you are, you have no money, you want to start a business, why haven't you done it? Like, what's really stopping you? Is it confidence, money, children, your partner? You want to know what's stopping them, because you need to know if it's different. And then so a tip with this question, if they're not getting deep enough, ask them a numerical answer. So let me give you an example. So you might find it helpful to ask them at this point, okay, how badly do you want your dream on a scale of 1 to 10? And if they say 10, great, okay? Then you want to ask them, okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how badly are you willing to do whatever it takes, or how much, whatever. I'm messing up my words this morning, but you get it. How badly are you willing to do whatever it takes to get there? Are you actually willing to do whatever it takes to get there on a scale of 1 to 10? And you hope that they say 10, anywhere between an 8 to a 10. I've asked this question before. I don't ask that question very often, actually, because I find that I can get them there without that question, but it's a really good clarifying question. I had asked it to a woman that I just wasn't feeling like she was really committed to her vision. I was like, how badly do you actually want it? She's like, oh, a 10. I was like, okay, well, how willing are you to do whatever it takes? She's like maybe a 5. And I was like, well, then you just don't want it bad enough. Like you can tell right there that they probably won't buy, and it has nothing to do with you. They're just not ready. And you may even want to say, like I said to her, as a coach, it doesn't sound like you're ready. So and then you can ask them, what is it that will get you from a 5 to a 10? Is there anything that you can do to get you to a 5 to a 10? She might say, yeah, confidence. She might say, I don't know, right? Like maybe she's having a baby and she's pregnant and it's just not good timing. Like you'll hear a lot more about her story. What will get you from a 5 to a 10, or even a 5 to a 9, or 5 to a 7? So you want to what your job is on a sales call is to pick out what's in their head and put it out. They may, like Kaylee had said, like they may not have thought about these things. So that's your job to ask them the right questions to help them understand. Another numerical question that you might want to ask them is, how badly do you want this? When do you want to get there? Do you wish you were there yesterday? Or do you wish, or you can get there in 10 years on a scale of 1 to 10? 1 being you could get there in 10 years, and 10 being you wish you got there yesterday. Where are you? And her answer for me, like when I'm talking about this example, she said, oh, I could get there in 10 years. I was like, honey, you're not ready. And that's okay. Right? So you want them to say, like, I wish I was there yesterday. Right? And Denise is smiling because she told me that the other day. She was like, oh man, I need my dreams yesterday, which is awesome, right? So you want to know, where are you? And ask yourself those questions too. Like if you're really wanting to start, like Nicole said, she wants to start her own business, where are you? And I want you to honor that. It doesn't matter. If you say, you know what, 2 years is good, that's fine. You just know you're still in your journey. And same with your clients. Honor where they're at, because it is okay. So then we get into the next question. Why is this really important to you? Like, why do you want to do this? You'll also see where their headspace is at. Here you can get a variety of different answers. You might get my children, my partner, for me, or they might talk about their clients, and that's okay too. And then here are some really important questions, especially for those selling more emotional things. So a few of you, so I'd say mostly Denise and Kaylee are selling more emotion. Maybe actually a little bit with the design as well. I'm going to try right? Like you're kind of selling emotion. So these questions are really important for you. What has not doing this cost you? You have to get them to understand that even emotion is costing them something. So if they're not confident, if their house, do you do residential or commercial? Residential. So it's like, what is this costing you? And we know this, like I actually have a design client. So we talk about this all the time. Like if you hate your home, you're miserable. You look at your home every day and you think, man, that's so ugly. Like that's doing something to you. So you have to get them to say out loud, shit, like, what is this costing you mentally, physically, emotionally, financially? And what your product might sell is more to the emotional, but that's okay. It's still costing them joy, peace, like freedom, ease, right? We have to paint that picture. So once we've gone through these questions, then what you want to do is just quickly summarize and just say, okay, based on what you've told me, this is what you're looking for. And this is what you want to get. And again, quickly, like you're looking for whatever, freedom, da, 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 da. And then you circle back. Is this correct? Did I miss anything? Was I correct in interpreting what you were telling me? And they usually say, yep, I think that's about all. Or they might say, actually, I do want to add one thing into that. Right? Okay. And then once you summarize, you say, okay, great. do you mind if I tell you a little bit about what I do? Because it sounds like it might be a good fit based on what you've told me. Now, as a good salesperson, here's something to note. And I think a few of you had talked about messaging. When you do these sales calls, the beautiful thing is you start to really understand your client's pain points and how they talk about them. So when you go into your sale, and I don't want to use sale as a bad word, right? Like we all are understanding you're not trying to sell something they don't need. If you actually think it's a fit and you're communicating to them what you do, use language that they've used. So one thing I see is that like you'll spend all this time doing this sales call and they'll be using very specific language. Like I'm looking for freedom, peace, whatever, love, I don't care. I'm just using those 3 words. And then you do your sales call and you start saying things like productivity. They're like, what? It doesn't, you have to be the cover letter to a resume, right? You have to show them that what they need is what you're providing, if it is, in the same words that they just gave you. So don't feel like you have to communicate in a way that's just you, because it may not resonate. And your job, if it is a fit, and I keep going back to this, this is not for you to like shove something down someone's throat and manipulate them into buying something that isn't right for them, because we've all been there. You know, I hired a coach who was like, yeah, I do that. And I was like, great. Didn't do any of that. He was just using all of my words to sell me on something that he didn't do. Don't do that. But if you think if it's actually a fit and you're actually good at it, then use their words so that you can communicate to them better. And they just understand, right? English is limited and our language is limited. So just help yourself out of it. Now, when you're telling your offer, there's a specific structure you want to use. The first thing you do is you tell them what the offer is without pricing. You haven't got to the price point yet. So you say, okay, great. You know, I do blah, 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 blah. And you want to loop it back to what they need. So you want to tell them, okay, this is what I do based on what you need. This is how I do it. So I do, you know, one-on-one calls, visits, whatever it is that you want to explain how you do your work. And then you want to ask them before you tell them the price, does that make sense? Does that sound like I'm meeting your needs? Does that sound like that's what you're looking for right now? Does that make sense? Because sometimes, like one of the sales calls I was on last week, she literally said to me, so we've seen that, she goes, we've seen that, what did she say? We've seen that, that people aren't engaging in Zoom and da-da-da. Like she was telling me the problem and then said, how has that shown up for you? And I was like, it hasn't. So then their sales call is bust. Right? Like you want to use their language and you want to ask them, is this a fit? Is this making sense to you? Is this what you need? I've actually had one woman say, actually, that isn't what I need. And I'm like, okay, what do you think you need? Tell me. Because then I can tell you if I can modify my package, or maybe it's not a good fit and that's cool too. But most of the time people are like, yeah, I think that sounds about right. That is what I'm looking for. Okay. Then when they say that, you say, okay, great. And then you reiterate one more time. So 4 appointments, an assessment, whatever, you repeat. Okay. So 4 blah, 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 this package, you want to reiterate your package just again quickly. That will be, $6,000. And then you shut up. You don't say anything. You let them respond. And it may take a minute and that's okay. Right? So, okay, so that'll be for 4 visits, 4 mock-ups, for purchasing, that'll be $6,000. And you wait. You can say if you want to and you feel uncomfortable saying just nothing, just say, how does that sound to you? And then you wait for them to respond. And then you go from there. From there, your job is managing objections. Most of the common objections are time and price, realistically. They may put it on their partner and say, okay, well, let me chat with my partner first, or I just have to think about it. Okay, so when dealing with objections, a few really important questions to ask them. Not a worry. You want to validate their objection. Be like, I totally get it. You know, this is a lot of money, especially if you're not used to working with a coach or a designer, whatever. Then you want to say to them, you want to get clarification. So, okay, great. How much were you hoping to spend? Did you have a budget coming into this? What does this look like for you? You may want to go back to some of their answers above of like their vision, their challenges, why they haven't done it, and what it's costing them, just to remind them. Another thing that you might want to do is, I'm trying to think of some of the other objections. So price, so that's usually what I ask for price, is just talk about it more. A lot of time they may say, okay, well, I just need to go away to think about it. Totally fine. I just ask them, I love it. You know, everyone has their different process. And then I ask them specifically, can you tell me a little bit more about how you make decisions? I want to make sure that I'm giving you what you need to make the best decision for you. So how do you make decisions? How can I help you? You know, do you need to look at things in writing? Do you need to think about things? Do you make decisions quickly? Like, tell me who you are so that I can help you along this process. And I've gotten so many different answers. I'm like, you know what? I think I just need 24 hours, or I think I need a week, or I think I need to talk to some more people. All of those things are fine, but you want to know, and you want to gauge, okay, who am I dealing with here, so that you don't have to be guessing. You do not have to guess at the end of this call. You do not need to guess, when am I hearing from this person again, or what is even going on. Everything should be very clear. So you want to know, okay, how do you make decisions? And then ask them, what are the main things that you're going to be thinking about after this call? You know, let's go through it out loud. We can chat about it on the phone so that I can answer any questions that might come up for you. You know, what are the biggest things you're going to be thinking about? Money, time, if you're ready, and then you can deal with the objections on the phone. But do you see how I'm pulling out the objections so there's no guess? Like, just be curious and be genuine in it. And then they might say to you, okay, well, like, I still need to think about it. And you say, don't worry. Here's the key, is you want to give them an incentive to deciding quicker. So you say, if you let me know within the next, and again, honoring how they make a decision, but if you let me know by Monday, or if you let me know within the next 24 hours, I'll throw in blah, 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 blah. So you want to know ahead of time what your little like incentives will be, right? Maybe you throw in a discount. Maybe you throw in an extra session. Maybe you throw in a free course or opt-in or something that you have. You want to beef it up so that it looks like it's adding more value and they want to take advantage of that offer. Okay? And then that will also help you to give a date. You don't want to be guessing when you have to follow up. You don't want to be chasing. You also want it to be very clear from their standpoint when they will hear from you again. Be like, okay, great. You know, let me know within the next 24 hours, or why don't we hop on a call on Monday? You want to book that next time so there's no guessing. And so you're not just like following up with them aimlessly. Does that make sense? Okay. How does that feel? I know that's a lot of information, and you're going to have to role play and do a lot of practice with this, because it will take work just to get you to feel comfortable about it. But I can just reiterate that, just like, be comfortable. Talk to someone about it. Know your value. Know what you want to create and how you can help them. And be totally unattached. Like, it's just a conversation of you getting to know someone and you figuring out if it makes sense for you to help them or not. That's it. Right? Like, take away the pressure. How does that feel for you ladies? Can I get some feedback of what that's like to hear? Or are there any places that you're seeing that you're making a mistake? Like, what was your biggest aha from that? And what are you taking away from this mini training?
So I am those women. I'm the bad sales girls that you dealt with last week.
Yeah, right?
Let's chit chat and just like feel it out and see where this goes. There's no process. There's no structure. I don't even know who's leading the call half the time. And then what I end up with is a lot of people who are super interested. They like what I do. They see my value, but there is no urgency because I'm not in a structure or plan. So they're also just like doing what they usually do. And then nothing happens.
Yeah.
And like, let's talk in 6 weeks, or
Right.
it just like getting thrown down. So you like held up a mirror to what I had already been experiencing, and just like, I know something isn't working here, but I don't know what it is, and like how to create a structure for sales inside of what I do.
Awesome. That's so good. I'm so happy to hear it because we all have been bad. And I was bad too. That's why I was like, okay, this is not working. I need to figure out, I literally, in order to figure out like my structure, I interviewed a ton of people that were amazing at sales. I'm like, what does your sales call sound like? And they all were pretty much like this.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. I have no shame about being bad. I'm like, what do I need to do so that I'm bad?
Yeah.
Like, that's where I am.
And what you can do too to practice is like, just give a bunch of free consultations and then just get on this call like this. And that's what I think people miss too, is a free consultation doesn't mean that you have to just give all this value on the call. It's a sales call. And people have to also be ready for that. Like if you're giving away free time, they know they're getting pitched to, and that's okay. So what you might do is if you've given away a free call, people also think that when they're talking, like you're helping them. So they've done most of the talking. A sales call gets a bad feeling when you've done most of the talking and they feel like they're being sold to. But when you're asking all these questions and you really want to know like how to help them, they feel like you're getting value and they're not being tricked into it. If you want to give them a couple tips, you can. Like in the, at the end, be like, oh, I have a couple tips that I can give you right now. You can do that. But that's only if you've given it away for like a free call. I don't really give too many tips, especially if you know you can help them and their challenge is, the good thing about what most of you ladies do is you can give a quick tip like, oh, fix this, and then still them knowing that they have more to work with you. Right? I think sometimes also people will get on a call, give all these tips, and they're like, okay, great, I'll come back to you in a month once I execute everything. Like, don't give too much that they feel like they're good now, that they had this free call with you. You can give a couple tips, but also through this process, they'll start to see and uncover they have a lot more to go through than just a couple tips. That's what you want to uncover in the like, what do you actually want to see? You want them to see that gap and how big that gap is, right? Cool. Thanks for being so vulnerable and saying that, because we've all been in that boat. That's awesome. If you honestly, just this structure will like, it changed the game for me and can make you thousands of dollars in a month.
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
You have a question. I don't know if you're taking questions yet. Okay. So, people get on a free call with me, and then the next thing that I'm selling them is a 2-hour in-person consultation.
Yeah.
But when it comes to talking about my offer, I'm never sure if I should be talking about the bigger scope of products and services that I offer, or if I should be just like focused on the next step in the process.
Yeah. So I would focus on the bigger offer and then tell them within the bigger offer what it includes. The bigger offer includes a 2-hour consultation. So start big and then go down. So I would say, and the reason I say start big and go down is because if they've said no to the bigger package, you can say, you know what? I get it, that it's a lot of money and it's hard for you to make that decision. Why don't we just start with the consult and then we can go from there?
Yeah, because I can't even tell you what the price of that big package is. I think that's the problem about talking about bigger scope is I need the information from the 2 hour results to actually create that.
I get it. Yeah. So I've had the same issue with my like interior design client. So what we've done is, so we've done it a couple different ways for her. It depends how you charge, if you charge hourly or if you charge percentage. So what she does, because a lot of people haven't worked with designers, so they just don't get it. So by you being very transparent about like how you basically make your money and what that looks like, if they pay you a flat rate, you still have to paint the picture of, for me to do this, this would take approximately, by what you're telling me right now, this will probably take, 40 hours or whatever, based on some past projects. So you just want to have a bigger picture so they don't get a sticker shock, right? It'd be like, this might be about 40 hours, give or take. It's okay for you to give a range. Okay. It's also okay for you to say, for similar projects in the past, you might be looking at anywhere between, $20,000 to $50,000. But I can also work within your budget, and that's okay too. I just want to just be as transparent as possible about the process and the range, and then how you work and how you bill them.
Okay.
Does that make sense? Is that helpful?
It does.
Yeah, because if you just tell them about the 2 hour, then you're stunting your, like, you want to paint the roof high, right? You don't want it to be really low, or else they're going to stop at the consult.
Yeah.
So you want to assume they're going with you to the very end.
Okay.
Yeah. Cool. Any other questions or aha moments about this sales process? Yeah.
So this is like so helpful. I think I have given away too much free stuff on the call, and they feel like they don't need me. Yeah. But I have a couple sales calls happening this week, and a problem with my clients is they're so they're not confident, and they have a lot of self-doubt, so they don't believe that I can help them. They're like, you can't fix me, I'm too broken, and it's not even worth it, I don't know, like I'm too far gone, like all that stuff. So it's like within them, right? Which is why I'm working with them, because that's the transformation I'm offering. So it's like they kind of given up before they even start.
Yes. So I love that you said that. Oftentimes, and I had this in my mind and forgot to say it, oftentimes when they say no, it's because they don't believe in you or they don't believe in them.
It's them, yeah.
And it can be either, right? So it is your job to make them believe in themselves on that call. Mm-hmm. And to make them believe. So it's amazing that you know that. So on that call, you have to paint the picture. What I think you should dive deeper into is their vision. Mm-hmm. Because they're focusing on where they're at, and they're like, I'm like nothing, I can't get there. If you paint that vision of their ideal self and where they want to get to, and then they believe that you can help them, guide them there, then your sale would be like a slam dunk every time.
For sure.
So then also asking them, okay, what are the challenges? Being very specific, going back to the questions of what are the challenges and why haven't you gotten there yet? Mm-hmm. And then even asking them, so you might need to be very specific about your ask and tell them, okay, so if I could show you a way. So let's say their answer is, what are your greatest struggles, or like what's been getting in their way? And their answer is like, man, I'm just so not confident and I don't know how I could do this. Your specific ask to them is, if I could show you a way to improve your confidence, would that be worth it for you? Mm-hmm. Would you do this? Are you ready?
Yep.
So throw their, this is a little bit of an aggressive statement, but like throw their objection back at them. Mm-hmm. Right? And be like, okay, you're telling me that your objection is confidence. If I could show you how to be more confident, are you ready?
Yeah.
Their answer should be yes. If their answer is no, then you're like, okay, what else is under there? Why is your answer no?
For sure. And then it gets into like solving their problems on the call. So I have to be like, they have to trust me. They have to be willing to commit and take the risk. But you know what I mean? So it is.
That's what you need to talk about. Be like, what are you really scared of? Mm-hmm. And even on a call, people will say, I'm scared that this won't work.
Mm-hmm.
So then give them a guarantee. Be like, okay, great. If after a month you're not seeing any improvements, we don't have to continue.
That's good. Yeah, that's true.
Right? Like you want to really know what is her fear, and her fears are valid.
I know.
But you have to ask the questions to know.
Okay. And that makes me want to help them more, because I'm like, I've been there. I know how scary it is, right? It's like, so, because it's just been like a theme I'm seeing, and I'm like, we're getting on the call, like you don't have much hope, but you're still getting on the call. So there must be something underneath that, right?
You may also need to build her up a bit. So you may need to say, look, like maybe her name is Amanda. Like, Amanda, in you telling me your vision, I want that so bad for you.
Mm-hmm.
I see you as this like strong and beautiful and like whatever woman, like paint her that picture back to her.
Mm-hmm.
And her be like, man, that sounds so good. And be like, I want to help you get there. And I think I can.
Yeah.
But so here's the thing too, in me giving all this information, what I see sometimes is only tell them about the guarantee when it comes up. Like, don't be on one of those sales calls and just like verbal diarrhea everything. Guarantee and incentive and blah, 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 blah. You want it to be very specific. Ask them their questions. What's really under that for you? What are you scared of right now? What's making you not say yes right now?
Mm.
Then you have to answer the objection so that they feel heard. Does that make sense?
Definitely.
Yeah. But I love that you notice that, because when you notice it, then you can solve it. And so it's just asking a few more questions and making her see her vision. Like, especially because I noticed we have a few coaches on the call, but it's the same with like, when we're helping, we have to tell them that we see their vision. We have to hold that vision so high for them and know that in us holding that vision for them, we can make that a reality. So they have to know you see that vision for them also.
Yeah.
Right? And it even goes for design, right? Like, and events. Paint it back to them and be like, I see you walking into your home and feeling at peace and ease. Like, what would that mean to you? Right? It's really just get to that emotion. And they're like, oh man, are you kidding? That would be a dream. And be like, okay, well then what's holding you back? Let's go. Like, let's go. You may also have to ask them a couple of times on the phone about money. Don't shy away. So every time you answer an objection, you're going to be like, okay, are you ready? Okay, are you ready to move forward? Okay, are you ready? Like, you might need to ask a bunch of times. And if they have a lot of objections, I mean, don't put it past them. You may have to ask 10 times if they're ready to go. Don't be scared of that. Because from the other side, it doesn't sound like you're pushing. It just sounds like you're answering the question and then you're asking if I have any more questions. Because when you say, are you ready? Then they're thinking, am I ready? Am I ready? Or do I have another question? Mm-hmm. And then you can practice with your friends and then ask them, did that feel pushy for you? Did that, how did that feel? And as long as you care, it's usually it'll go pretty well. Mm-hmm. Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Any other comments? Yeah, Nicole?
Yeah, this was so awesome. Thank you. I have a question. So after they explain what they're looking for, how do you approach it when they list that, like, you don't feel like it's a good fit?
Yeah. Then you just say, based on what you've said, I'm not sure that it's a good fit. And then you tell them, this is what I do. And do you see so you want to also tell them what's going on in your head. Like, this is what I do. Does this sound like what you're looking for or not? So it's actually happened to me once where it didn't feel like a good fit. But when I told them what I did, they were like, no, that is actually what I need. I'm just not communicating properly. Mm-hmm. And I was like, okay, fair. Like, that's totally cool. But I've been on calls where I'm like, this is what I do. And they're like, yeah, it doesn't sound like a good fit. And I'm like, okay, cool. Like, let me know if there's anybody else that I can refer you to. And then I'll try to refer them someone. Because they may come back, right?
Right.
At a later point in time. So you still want to build that relationship with them.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Good question. Anybody else? This is fun. You guys better go out this week and kill it. Good sales calls, just book them all. And here's where numbers, this goes back, I'm going to end on the fact that 80% of your time needs to be on sales. Like if you're really serious about this, there's no joke, like there's no reason why you can't book 50 sales calls in the next month. Like I'm talking volume, people. Jada's eyes just went, what? Yeah, like you have to set it. It depends how bad, here's how bad you want it. And it depends how important money is to you right now. But I see so many people and so many entrepreneurs being like, oh, I really want it. I really need money right now. Like I have to make this work. And then they book like 1 or 2 sales calls. Like Chiquita, it's not going to cut it. You got to do it. Like how bad do you want it? Go out there and book 50 sales calls, because in the beginning you're going to be bad. So you might not convert as many also, right? And so, but then after you'll be able to convert like 80, 90% of your sales calls. You'll be amazing. Most of my coaches, they sell on the phone. They get the credit card information and that's it. And then they just move forward. Right? So just volume, and push yourself a little bit with sales. Because if you really want it and you really need it, there's no reason to give you, I like to be realistic with numbers too. Like for example, and asks, I did an online summit and I interviewed 34 people. In order to get 34 yeses in the timeline that I needed, I emailed almost 300 people. Like this is real talk, right? I don't think people really talk about in entrepreneur world, like the actual work that goes on behind the scenes. Like, oh, great. I'll email 34 people to get 34 responses. Nuh-uh. Right? Like how bad do you want it? This is the actual work that goes into building a business and the grind in the beginning. Here's the difference. I don't like when people talk about grind and hustle because it makes it, to me, it gives an impression that you have to feel shitty while doing it. You don't have to. You can feel good while working, and that's really important, but it doesn't mean you aren't putting in the work. So yeah, we're over the hour, so I want to be aware of everybody's time. Any last questions before we finish up? Any comments or questions?
Vanessa, I might ask you about this after, but so like I want them to pay on the call. So you get their credit card number, you got mine, but like I think I have a Stripe account and PayPal. Like, does that work? Because I don't want to be like, okay, e-transfer me after, and then they're like, oh, never mind.
Yes.
Like, so I want to like seal it.
You can do it in 2 ways. So I get their credit card on the phone. You can use Stripe or Square and then put it through. I don't use PayPal for those payments, but with Stripe and Square, if they say they have to think about it, what you can do is send them the invoice. Be like, not a worry. I'm going to send you the payment button so that when you're ready, like within the next 24 hours, you can just pay when you're ready. Right? But at this point, you've already given them an incentive. You've already talked about when they're going to talk to you by, and you've given them a deadline, and then just give them the invoice. Be like, yep, I'm going to give you the invoice. Let me know. And then I'll circle back. That way you can pay when you're ready. Does that make sense? So they already have it. They can pay like ASAP. They don't have to message you and be like, okay, I'm ready. And then you send an invoice.
Yeah. I just haven't drafted up an invoice before or done that. So I'm just, it's new, but.
Yeah, it's super easy. Just do it on Square or Stripe.
Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
I had a question. Is there like a training that you went through on how to actually like get sales calls?
How to get sales calls? This is a good question. We can talk about that in another training. I talked about it a little bit last week on customer process. It depends on your brand and your sales funnel. So we can definitely talk more about that, how to get sales calls. But my biggest suggestion right now is to just be specific, ask, and build your call to action. So Instagram is huge for sales calls and reaching out to people. And asking for referrals is huge for sales calls. getting out there, doing, you know, free webinars, public speaking, then you can, and there's another tactic to that when you're public speaking and doing a webinar, what your sale is and what your close, but you have to make sure every time you're speaking, you're doing some sort of close to give a call to action. And we can talk about public speaking closes another time as well, so that when you're speaking in a webinar, you're very clear on, okay, here's what my offer is and here's how to reach me. Does that, I hope that's like a quick answer that might help. Yeah, but just you have to get out there as often as possible. Do collaborations, do free webinars, do summits, and just do as many things as possible to get in front of more people. And then always be giving the same offer. Like, just sign up for a free call, sign up for a free call. Like, you're literally a robot all the time. Sign up for your free call. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Cool. Alrighty. So we're going to finish up unless anyone has any dire questions. Okay. Awesome. Okay. Thank you, ladies, so much for being here. I hope this was helpful and you guys are going to kill it. Send me a DM, message me, keep me updated, and let me know how this process works for you. And then we'll chat soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye, ladies. So proud of you. See
Bye.
you.